There is absolutely no evidence of pygmies ever living in Australia. What's up guys, my name is Zane, I'm an Australian archaeologist, and today I'm going to tell you about the myth of the pygmies and where it came from and why the evidence shows that it's just not true. So this theory was actually popularized by this guy behind me, Keith Windschuttle, in the early 2000s, but he actually drew on data that is much older from the 1930s. Keith Windschuttle took all of Birdsell's evidence, including this photo, and all the work he did in his anthropological career, and he created an argument that rests on 5 main pillars. So we're going to go through and we're going to look at each one of those right now. Number 1, the people measured by Birdsell around Kuranda and Cairns, which is in the north of Australia, were shorter than 140 centimeters, making them, by the anthropological definition, pygmies. This is just not true. The people measured by Birdsell were on average 155 centimeters tall at Kuranda and 159 centimeters tall at Cairns. This man right here standing next to Birdsell in the photo is 140 centimeters, a full 15 centimeters shorter than the average of his people, meaning that across the board, these were not pygmy people. The second pillar of the argument is that the people who lived in Tasmania had wavy hair and therefore looked like pygmies. Next pillar. The third argument is that the skeleton found at Lake Mungo, which is the oldest skeleton ever found in Australia dating to around 42,000 years old, was very short in stature. This is also just categorically untrue. The right ulna of Mungo Man has a maximum length of 297 millimeters, which actually lies in the uppermost percentile of modern day Aboriginal males, making him tall even by today's standards. Argument number 4 is that the discovery of tiny stone artifacts meant that they were made by tiny people. This is just wildly untrue. When you make a stone artifact, there's an incredible amount of stone debris that flies everywhere, like these little tiny pieces here, and I've made these myself. This is just a comment from somebody who's not an archaeologist, never made stone tools, and I don't even know what else to say about that. And the last pillar of the argument is that the dingo was brought to Australia around 6,000 years ago, and with them came an entirely new stone toolkit that had never been seen in the region before, meaning that the people that bought the dingo were culturally different. Now, 50 years ago, archaeologists and scientists actually did think this was true, but new research has shown that that's just not the case. Tool types have changed in Australia dramatically through time, but there was no sudden and immediate change. It was a gradual change, and we find those gradually changing artifacts. Okay, so what other evidence is there to support that this is an image of a race of pygmies and not just a very short individual? None. Absolutely nothing. To understand Keith Windschuttle's motivation, it's worth noting that he's also written several books, and one of them is titled The Fabrication of Aboriginal History, where he argues that the stolen generation is a myth. He's also the author of this book, where he argues that racism in Australia is just not that bad, it's been dramatically exaggerated. But what about the theory that there was 3 separate colonizations of Australia? Couldn't we just use the DNA evidence to put this theory to rest? Well, yes, and we have. Aboriginal Australian DNA goes right back to the start, and it actually remarkably lines up with the archaeological evidence, suggesting that they got here around 75,000 years ago at the very least, and they were the first people to come here. There's not been any intermixing with other people's DNA. And I've actually already made a video about it, and you can watch it right here.